Okay, so hey guys, and welcome back to another predictions video. And in today's video I'm going to be predicting the Ramirez versus Espinoza fight. If you are new around here though and you haven't yet subscribed, please do so. Like the video if you do indeed like the video, and let's get straight into it. So going into this fight, Ramirez is 13-1 with 8 KOs and Espinoza is 21-0 with 18 KOs. This fight is for the WBO World Featherweight title. Ramirez's last fight was a win via TKO in round 5 versus Shimizu. Espinoza's last fight was a win via KO in round 2 versus Warangi. Ramirez is 5'6" and Espinoza is 5'1". Ramirez is a southpaw, and to speak a bit more about what I'm saying, of course, this for a world title, Ramirez defending his title. Ramirez last time out was a good performance from him, a good stoppage against a guy going to his home country, and like I said, a good stoppage against a taller opponent. And here again he's against a taller opponent. Like I mentioned, Espinoza being 6'1", is that going to play a factor in this fight? Of course, Espinoza's used to being a taller fighter, but now Ramirez has had that experience and is now becoming more used to being the smaller fighter. So is that going to play a factor? Of course, Ramirez being a southpaw, that's always going to add an element with it. Ramirez as a fighter, he's been active this year. I believe this is his third fight this year, and so for a world champion, then that's active. Well, third or fourth fight this year, so that's been active, and so that's nice to see. It's important to see, and even though he is a world champion already, with every fight he's still developing, and it's still nice to see him being regularly fighting, and I'm sure for himself he's going to want to be regularly fighting in the professional ranks. So as a fighter, he's got momentum at the moment. Of course, he's winning consistently and winning convincingly with every fight as of recent. He'll break you down. He's good at imposing himself, even on these taller opponents. He's good at imposing his will on to an opponent. He's a skilled fighter. He sets traps. He's calculated. He knows how to get you out of there. He changes levels. He feints well. Controls the tempo. He's got good shot variety. Makes good adjustments. He's a bit of a kind of all-rounder type fighter. There's a lot that he can do. He's composed, he controls the centre like I mentioned, he's got a high guard, he doubles up his shots well, he's got good angles, and he's a really nice fighter to watch, and I am a fan of him, and I think he's got a lot of talent, and the fact that he is very calculated is nice to see. The fact that he's going to set these traps and be patient and not be trying to force the fight, it's important to see. And he was waiting and feinting and throwing jabs to the body, throwing jabs to the head, and waiting in his last fight to see what his opponent would do. And then eventually, when he worked out and he found out what was going on, then he eventually broke him down, got him out of there, and it made it look relatively easy. And against a tough opponent, that's what you want to be seeing, just complete dominance and just outclassing, being calculated throughout and just not trying to force it too much. And especially younger fighters coming through that have this momentum, they're going to have confidence coming through as well, and they're going to probably end up trying to force fights too much. And so it's nice to see somebody here with Ramirez not especially doing that too much. The negatives about him, there's not loads of clear negatives. I'd say he can be held at a jab a bit. I think Shimizu did that at times. He can be held a bit at range. I don't think he's amazingly good at range. I think in close is definitely where he's better at imposing himself and wearing you down. He can also give off rounds as well. When I say he's composed, he's patient, he's calculated, sometimes he's giving off rounds because he's just waiting a bit too long, but that's going to come with time, I'm sure. And it's just, I don't know if you can really be giving off rounds and possibly taking it a bit too slow against somebody like Espinoza, who is a clinical puncher. He may be overlooking Espinoza here, of course, him being a world champion, and there's been talks about big fights for him. This is arguably not really that, but it means that you may be overlooking. He's not overly fast. He hasn't really got a crazy good hand speed. It's not amazingly good. Like, I don't feel like he is overly fast, but it's just very controlled. And, it means that he can get countered because he's not overly coming in, coming out quickly, and he's not got loads of defensive movement, but it's just not overly fast, but it's still very calculated and composed and finds the angles, and the angles can just catch you off guard even with the fact that it's not as fast. He Like I mentioned, is the smaller fighter. Sometimes he crosses over his legs when he's attacking a little bit and stands straight on, which, it happens sometimes. But other than that, he's a very well gifted fighter. And to speak about his opponent, of course, him being the taller fighter, the one with the longer reach, the one with the good jab. It's a consistent jab. It's a well worked out jab. It's a jab that sets up other shots and can and does keep a range well. He changes levels well. He's patient as well as that of Ramirez. He finds gaps. He's got good timing. He doesn't force his work. He's a back/front foot fighter. He's accurate, creates space, big puncher, can take a punch. He fights quite relaxed, quite loosely. He works off the jab. He wears you down. He's got similar elements to that of Ramirez. I mean, like I mentioned, the fact that it's not going to be forced, it's quite patient, it's good timing. That's all similar kind of attributes. I would say he's very relaxed and moves nicely and controlledly and just confidently and loosely in the process, and you don't see that with many fighters. I think fighters in general, I think most fighters and most people in general, when they step into the ring, it's difficult to be loose and just be completely fluid, and it seems like Espinoza can do that to an extent, and for a taller guy as well to be able to do that, it's rare to see and it's impressive. And the fact that he does create this space with this longer reach, he can push away, and be interesting to see how he can counter Ramirez wanting to come in when he's just trying to create space. I'm sure he's going to be trying to move around the ring and not be just front foot fighting, but like I mentioned, he can fight on the front and the back foot, and so it's not going to be nowhere near an easy night for Ramirez. It's going to be a tough fight, and the fact that he does also have this power and this timing as well, it's going to be interesting to see if he can catch Ramirez coming in. Ramirez doesn't really have crazily good head movement, so I feel like there is possible opportunities to catch him coming in, but he does have quite a high guard, to be fair to Ramirez, and it's going to be interesting to see if Ramirez, if he can bait Espinoza in with any of his feints. But to be fair, Espinoza's got good feints himself. Negatives about Espinoza: he's used to fighting at home, so for this, I mean, neither of them are fighting at home, it's in America, so, is that going to play a factor? He's going to be the away fighter coming into this, and so he's not really overly used to that. He can struggle a bit in close sometimes. His accuracy can drop a bit. He can be a little bit more sloppy. It's not terrible, but it's a little bit more struggled in close. He is having a big step up here. I mean, it's a thing which every fighter has to have, but this is a big step up for him. His head movement, he hasn't really got too much. Sometimes he can be a bit too comfortable. When I say he's comfortable, he's loose. Sometimes a bit too comfortable, and then can get caught with counters or just shots in general. He stands up quite upright as well, so he is quite a big target to hit, and with Ramirez changing levels, is that going to play a factor? He's got a bit of a weaker guard. He will be punching downwards, and if he's changing levels with a jab, it's going to be difficult to punch downwards if he isn't really applying much head movement. He's not overly fast either. He's got a bit of a lack of combinations at times. He struggles to cut off the ring a bit when he is on the offense, and sometimes he struggles to let his hands go a bit, kind of links to the lack of combinations. He can kind of set off the jab and then maybe follow up with another one, but it's not really as much pressure as what Ramirez will put you under when he is on the offense and does find openings. Ramirez is the favourite for this fight, and I think that Ramirez will win via a unanimous decision. I think he can find work. I think he can improve throughout. I think he can work him down. I think Espinoza is a tough fighter and he's not going to get him out of there, but I think he's going to be able to work him to the body, work him to the head. I think he's eventually going to get in close and then be able to work. I think Espinoza could find success in the earlier rounds, but it'd be interesting to see how both fighters deal with in the later rounds, and if either of them are possibly switching off in between rounds. But hopefully neither of them do, and we get a great fight. And I still believe that Ramirez will win via unanimous decision. Also, the fact that he has been boxing at a higher level, I think that's going to play dividends as well. Then who he could go on to fight? I mean, there's possible talk to him fighting Inoue. We'll have to see what Inoue does after fighting Tapayas. We'll have to wait and see. He might want to defend again his title in the lower weight, or he might move up. We'll have to wait and see. But that Ramirez fight is being talked about for him. Possible other fights, I think Fulton Jr., that could be a good fight. He's moved up since the fight with Inoue, and I'm sure he's going to be wanting a big fight, and so that could be a big fight. Or Lopez, that's another big fight with another world champion, and I mean, he hasn't really got rumoured too many fights at the moment, so that could be a huge fight for both fighters. And then Ramirez and Lopez going down the more undisputed route, which would be nice to see, with titles now being vacated and fought for and new champions coming through, with the Ford vs Kolmatov fight happening. I feel like the featherweight division is going to be interesting to see within the next couple of years what's going on. But yeah, that's it for today's video. Hope you did enjoy. Like if you didn't, like this, subscribe if you're new, and thanks for watching.